Welcome to the T-roh Show. Transmitting truth one week at a time.
Welcome to the 29th broadcast of the T-roh Show. This is your host, Keith. We have an open forum here tonight on Gail's call. It's a question and answer call that she covers every Tuesday evening. But we also have other things that we would like to cover on this show or this particular broadcast. What I'm going to do is going to be sharing some screens. We're going to go over some new GPEX website, and then we'll be going over the recent orders and notice of the acts that were passed last night. Okay, here's the new GPEX site. And what we have here is a basic GPEX site. We normally have the other GPEX site. I'll open that up here in just a minute. But the problem we were having is people were not understanding how to do WordPress, how to build their own websites. So that is moving extremely slow. We've had the other websites up for quite a while. It's moving way too slow. So what we needed to do is change it up a little bit, fix the problems that we were having. And now this particular GPEX is generalpostexchange.com/trade. If you do not put the HTTPS on it, you will not get this particular site. So you have to have this particular address just like this, https://generalpostexchange.com/trade. Okay, and if you end up at this site over here, that's not a problem. All you got to do is do a / and TRADE. Push this little arrow right here, and it'll bring you over to the other site. Now, what we're doing is normally we have. Here, let me stop sharing. Normally, what we have is. Hold on 1 second. We've got somebody that doesn't know how to mute. All righty. Okie dokie. So we're back to the offers and wants. So this is a community exchange type site. In other words, you can do this in your local area, which means that there's a section in the create new account area where it'll ask for your neighborhood. Put your real neighborhood. Quit fooling around with this and put your real neighborhood right here. And you can go ahead and come together with other people in your neighborhood right around your area. Okay, don't worry about the countries. We'll qualify that in a little while. What you do is you registered offers and wants. This is simple, yes, no. If you have an offer, yes. If you don't, you have a want. It's that simple. It's under these categories: digital goods, services, and trade. All transfers of currency, any kind of money or anything like that, can be earned at the Continental Public Bank. So if you have a pay now, it says pay with Continental dollars, you open this particular window. It goes over to the Continental Public Bank. You can log in from this window here. You don't have to do anything else. You scroll down, use your username, transfer money over to the other user, and that's it. It's as simple as that. You've made your purchase. They get the email that you've paid it, and that's the end of it. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing now, move over to back to the website. I'm going to go ahead and log in to this particular website here. And what I'll show you is registering a want and show you how simple it is, or an offer. And you'll notice that when you log in, all the bells and whistles come alive. You have a big, all the the offers, wants, members, news, privacy agreement, and all that. That all comes to life here. So you can register offer, and this is where you can upload an image to what you have. You have I have, and then whatever it is. If it's a piece of furniture, you put furniture there, or whatever it is. Tell your story. In other words, say what it is, how much you want for it, how old it is, that kind of thing. Or if it's brand new, that's fine too. How much you want for it in Continental dollars. Once these things are registered, you can go over to offers here, and they'll be listed on this particular page. And that being listed on the particular page, there we go. Under the different categories, you can come over here when you click the offer, and you can send messages and everything. Hey, I want that. Where can I get it? How do we do this? And you guys can work it out yourselves. It's really not an issue. It's just simple offers and wants. Pay with Continental dollars. That's it. No building websites, no nothing like that. So we did this and tried to make it as easy as we possibly could, so anybody can use it. Okay, so what we want to do is go over some of the posting we did last night, which was introducing the Equal Protection Act of 2017 and general orders issued by the National Assembly for the Government of the United States of America. This was published on the 3rd yesterday. The Equal Protection Act of 2017 is the subject matter of the Equal Protection Act of 2017 is to reverse the despicable resolutions of the U.S. Senate that are designed to protect specific groups rather than the people as a whole. So everyone knows in this country that Christians are being attacked. Well, every time the Christians come back and defend themselves, they are demonized, and it's done by these resolutions. So there's an obvious, despicable, heinous intent behind their hate crime act. It's basically on the resolution of 118. Okay, so it deals with hate groups and all this other kind of junk that they're trying to slander people. Okay, that's not a Senate's job, no matter which country you're in. The Senate is not there to take sides. It's not supposed to do that. So since it's not supposed to do that, it's called despicable. That's the way it works. Okay. We have another one called an order granting Sheriff Joe Arpaio international immunity from suit. This guy has caught all kinds of hell for doing his simple job, keeping illegal people out of the country. That's all he's been doing. And they've been suing him, messing with him, screwing with him. You need to leave the man alone. He's out of office. Order deporting the Council on American Islamic Relations. This group right here, CAIR, C-A-I-R, has been designated as a terrorist group. And they're working with the schools. UAE designated them as a terrorist group. United Arab Emirates. Internationally, they're known as a terrorist group, and they're working with local schools. So, therefore, there's a deportation order, and there's other things in that deportation order that are extremely important to read. There's the link right there. Just click that, and it'll open up to the document. This order for permanently adjourning the Council on Foreign Relations. This Council on Foreign Relations is well known as a communist organization. They have been working against the interest of the people here ever since they first convened. From the beginning, they've been working against the interest of the people. These people in Council on Foreign Relations, these are enemies of this country. They do not have your welfare at heart. Now, there was another one that we had. It was order protecting Donald J. Trump and his family from personal threats. There's a big difference between a personal threat and a political. You can go after his policies, or you can go after his executive orders, or whatever he's doing. That's different because that affects everybody. You cannot, on a human basis, threaten another man with death and get away with it. That's not normal. We're not getting any benefits from Donald J. Trump. The National Assembly's not. We're not even connected to him. We're not even talking to him. I personally have no idea who the man really is, as far as what kind of man he is and everything else. All you hear is rumors and things like that. I've never sat down and talked to him before. So it's hard to tell what kind of guy he really is. You're going to hear everybody else's opinion and based on how they see him. But you're not going to be able to get your own opinion unless you sit down and talk to him for 5, 10 minutes and you get an idea. Okay. But however, there's been nothing more than threats upon threats upon threats upon his personal life, of which there was no way in hell they would allow this to happen if Obama was in there. So there's obviously some bias going on. There's obviously some kind of crap going on that doesn't need to go on. So that being said, that's the reason for this particular order. It's a very specific order, and it deals with media and disbanding and getting them off the air. These people that are in the media that are constantly threatening him and all that kind of thing, or allowing it or egging other people on to do it, they need to be pulled off the air. It's a fairly simple deal. Okay, now we've got one more document here that was done by Mr. Boxley. He presented this to the Assembly last night. I'm going to get it now, and it's going to bring a lot of this stuff together that a lot of people have not even thought about or wondered about. Okay, this is called Metropolis C, and there shall be no more sea in Revelations 21. This is not going to be a sermon. Ptolemy the first established for himself a man-made gods in the Serapeum in Alexandria, a temple dedicated to the god, which also held a daughter library to that of the great library of Alexandria. Not given to him, he then took it upon himself and demanded an image in his honor. Think about that for a minute. He wanted an image in his honor. He wanted a stone head made of him. And many were put to death for refusing to do it. In other words, he would kill people if they would not worship his stone head as a god. Now, he soon found some sellouts who gave in, and it all took place in Memphis. This was happening around 300 to 310 AD, if I'm not mistaken, because 325 AD is when they went to the Council of Nicaea. Now, Serapis, and keep in mind that we're not trying to take you away from your Christian views or take you away from Jesus Christ. That's not what this is about. What we're trying to do is show you who the real Yahushua was, which is what his real name was. We're trying to show you what his real name was and who he really was. Okay, so Serapis may have finally had certain ties with the early Christian community. There were certainly some similarities between Serapis and the Hebrew god Christus, was another name for the Egyptian god Serapis. So Christus and Christus was the same guy. It was another name for Serapis, which was an Egyptian god. Serapis was a supreme god, and it seems that some early worshipers of Christ among the Gentiles certainly worshiped Serapis. So you had a little bit of a mix going on there. There was one group coming from one timeline, another group coming from another timeline. And they were meshing together. Okay, the entire matter was put to the Nicene Council, so they went to them as a peaceful settlement of disputes. This usually happens in international law, and that's where the Nicaea Council came in, congregated for the sole purpose of discrediting Arius, who spoke the truth about this man-made idol Serapis. He was saying that this was no god. That's exactly what was going on. So they wanted to get rid of that. And this is where a lot of this stuff came in. And I think I think Boxley put this on one of his groups, and they all started calling him an antichrist and all that kind of thing. They just wouldn't look; they wouldn't see what was going on, and it is really nothing to do with that. What we're saying is the guy that you're thinking is Serapis Christos or Jesus Christ. His real name was Yahushua, and that was his name in the Hebrew. Now, there's been all kinds of arguments over that. His name is Yeshua, all these other things. But the original Hebrew, you'll have to go back and read it that way in the direct translation. Okay. Now, in Dutch America, this is when it all started coming through, and this is where a lot of your issues are with the country today. It says Adrian Block is credited with being the first European to enter Long Island Sound and the Connecticut River, and to determine that Manhattan and Long Island are islands. And there's a map there. Okay, David, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that last name, sailed up the James River in mid-September 1635. This was the beginnings of the recorded history that we've found so far. Giuseppe was an active Freemason and regarded Freemasonry as a network uniting progressive men. He attended the Masonic Lodges of New York in 1850, where he met several supporters of the democratic internationalism, whose minds were open to making socialist thoughts their own and giving Freemasonry a strong anti-papal stand. The Papal State War, a truce was negotiated on July 1st and July 2nd, and Garibaldi withdrew from Rome with 4,000 troops. The French army entered Rome on the 3rd of July and reestablished the Holy See's temporal power. Okay, if anybody doesn't know what the Holy See is, that's what the Vatican is today. If you don't know what the Vatican is, that's Pope Francis. I'm sure you pretty much heard of him. Okay. If someone wants to jump in and help me out here, if any of this stuff, it says Menotti was arrested. It goes into some of this history, and apparently, what this looks like is that they're trying to make he's trying to make a comparison to the pentagonal shape or the citadel. Is that true? Anyone? No one wants to jump in? Or everybody is? Put your hand up if you'd like to speak. That'd be the best way to do it. Okie dokie. On my own here, folks. Okay, so in 1831 occurred the famous conspiracy of t-roh Menotti on the night of the 3rd and 4th of February. It was discovered then that Menotti was in prison, taken to Milan by the Duke, who had been constrained to flee to that city by the revolt of Bologna, and was hanged on May 16th after the Duke's return to Medina. In 1846, Francesco V succeeded to the duchy, and in the troubles of 1848 was compelled to seek refuge in Austria, but returned in the following year. In 1859, however, had declared for Austria. He was again obliged to leave his states in provisional government under Carlo Farini, decreed the annexation of Medina to the Kingdom of Italy, raised the dignity of the Metropolitan See. Okay. Metropolis, religious jurisdiction. Keep this in mind. Metropolis, religious jurisdiction. A metropolis or metropolitan archdiocese is a see or city whose bishop is the metropolitan of a province. I think it's metropolises, which is a plural word, historically have been important cities in their provinces. What they do is they control the land in metro, the banks, religious works, the media, and education institutions. Okay, so everybody in this country went through these things in the last 20, 30 years where the cities were being somehow voted into a metropolis or a metro. And you'll see Metropolis everywhere. What that is an old term for a metropolis way back in the day. And they're religious organizations. And these particular metros here, they're Catholic organizations. They sold this to you when you had the Superman and the Metropolis, and then you had Batman, all these things. They sold it to you, and they got you used to it in the comic books. So what you're looking at today is what they call sanctuary cities. And these sanctuary cities are giving sanctuary to illegals. And they're also doing this, especially if they're Catholic, and they're doing this for Islam. Now, the Catholic Church and Islam have a very rich history together. And the Catholic Church basically created Islam under one specific creed. And the creed is this. Go all the way back to Serapis Christus. Read here, many were put to death for refusing to do it. So what he was saying was, if you don't worship something that they think you should be worshiping, they put you to death. That's the creed. And it happens today. Islam believes if you don't worship Allah, that you will be put to death. The Catholics are what they call the good cop. Islam is the bad cop. They play good cop, bad cop to you all the time. You're thinking, well, the Catholics never do that. In a way, they do. Because what they do is they come into it what they call a war of attrition. And they cut you out completely from all resources. That's how they operate. That is the same as death. So if you don't worship Serapis Christus, the Catholics put you under a war of attrition. If you don't worship Allah, then they take your head. It's under the same exact creed that was started way back when Serapis was came into play. So every bit of this is connected. Okay, now the history of Metropolis action comic storyline stretches back to the year 1542 when Italian navigator discovered the region while in the employ of the Dutch. Prior to European colonization, the region was occupied by the Algonquin Native American tribe. It wasn't until 1634, however, that the first settlement was established by Dutchman Paul de Vries. The settlement was named de Vries Village and occupies the neighborhood now known as Old City in the eastern section of Queensland Park. Superman co-creator John Schuster was a newsboy when the Toronto Star was still called the Daily Star. Schuster has claimed that Metropolis was visually inspired by Toronto. However, over the years, Metropolis has served as a fictional analog to the New York City and the Gotham of Batman. The Daily Planet buildings, most distinguishing the famous feature in the enormous globe that sits on top of the building. Okay, the Daily Star, Canada. The group took ownership of the paper in December 13th, 1899. Shareholders formally approved the hire of Atkinson 5 days later. With his employment backdated to start December 13th, Atkinson's name first appeared in the masthead of the December 21st edition. His task was to save a failing newspaper, competing in a conservative city with 6 daily newspapers. Atkinson succeeded in turning the fortunes of the paper around. By 1913, it had the largest circulation of any Toronto newspaper. He continued to run the Star until his death in 1948, in the age of 82. The Daily Star office space of One Young Street is also leased out to a variety of other companies, including the Liquor Control Board of Ontario, Communications, Dental Office, and a new downtown Toronto campus. Okay, it's just a little bit of history back when it comes to Metropolis, why this is being brought in constantly to sell the people on the idea of a metro. So in the past 30 to 50 years, the Catholics have slowly moved in their metropolises, metropoli, and slowly have taken over. But those are the good guys. Remember, those are the good guys, supposedly. And now they're bringing in the bad guys, which is Islam, to do a lot of the dirty work, which is what they do. And they're protecting them in these called sanctuary cities. So that's why we call this the despicable. Now you understand what the U.S. Senate is doing by going after hate groups. You'll understand the whole history of what they're doing. This is nothing new, folks. Nothing new at all. So as far as I'm concerned, Senate right now can't be trusted. You can't trust anything that they're doing because they've made despicable resolutions that are protecting one, and they're doing it on behalf of what many people in this country would perceive as a foreign power. So understand one thing: Metropolis, they work for a foreign country called the Equestrian Order. They're completely foreign to this country. It's like having foreign police on the foreign troops on the ground, and they run it under a military occupation type thing. The Metro Police themselves don't know that. Most of them don't. They have no clue. They just went in and got a job. They were raised just like you were. But if you look at the history of Metropolis, you look at the history of all these things, you'll realize that they are foreign. Okay. Now let's go over to how this actually affected the Civil War. And this was Zouaves. I guess they're called Zouaves. Zouabes. Take battle with the Union on the Chesapeake. Okay, also known as Richard Thomas. Zervona was developed a plan to form his own militia, the Zervona Zouaves for the Confederacy. This was in the when they bring up this word Confederacy, this is for the actual Civil War. We're not talking about the original one in 1781. This was during the Civil War. It says he raises 50 men and starts training them on the shores of the Coen River near the mouth of the Potomac. That's over by Washington, D.C. Whenever you see this word Potomac, that's right next to Washington, D.C. Zervona turns the steamboat over to the Confederacy in Virginia, and he's feted as a hero at the ball in Richmond. On request, he dresses as a French lady at least 2 more times. I don't know why that was. That was weird. But he wears his colors, Zouaves uniform, when he and his men march in Richmond's 4th of July parade. Zervona was involved in Italy in the Garibaldi-Giuseppe campaigns. That's as far as I can do that. Zervona's plans for a repeat performance, the capture of another steamboat out of Baltimore, are foiled by Union spies. He ends up in the brig in Fort Henry, charged with piracy, and he spends the rest of the Civil War in a prison in New York. Okay, I do have a link to this, and I'll see if I can find it again, and you'll see pictures of these guys, of what we're talking about. All these guys were a part of the Dutch and the Vatican at the time that were fighting in the Civil War. And they were fighting for slavery. That's basically what they were after. So these are people that you really don't even hear anything about at all. Okay, I found it. And I'm going to show you pictures of them here in just a second. It should come on through. I'll read more while that's coming through. It's taking a few minutes. The internet's been really slow today. This is Surratt is rumored to have served with the fire Zouaves, or you call them Zouaves, and upon the outbreak of the American Civil War, he returned home and worked as a postmaster in Sarrettsville. It says he also acted as a Confederate agent, this including carrying messages along the Potomac River to the Confederate Army. He claimed he traveled to Elmira, New York, on a spying mission for General Edwin Lee. Surratt's task was to provide information about the federal prison in Elmira. It is known Surratt orchestrated the execution of President Lincoln. That's huge, folks. Orchestrated killing of an individual, basically a murder. Here's their picture. This was their uniforms. These were the actual pictures here. And these boys right here were all stoolies. in this country. They were all fighting for slavery. And it wasn't slavery of just black people. There was slavery for everybody. They didn't care. They didn't discriminate, believe me. Let's see if I can find this other one that we were looking at today. And you'll find that these guys were embedded into the Civil War, but yet nobody ever sees them. Nobody ever notices who they are. They were very well hidden in history. There's one of them. That's what they look like. Didn't even see this uniform. Nobody's ever seen this uniform before. And these people were nobody existed. Nobody knew they existed. And incredibly interesting on how that they are able to hide stuff like this. Let me see if this one actually comes up into a jacket or anything like that. I haven't really gone through this particular website. And there you go, Indiana Volunteers. So a lot of these guys were embedded in to what you considered the North and South, which is actually a fight between the Republicans and the Democrats. And that's what the whole Civil War was about anyways, slavery and non-slavery. But they were embedded in, and there was a a lot of foreign powers involved in the Civil War. Essentially what was going on is, let's think of this, turn it around. Let's think of this as maybe it wasn't an American Civil War. Maybe it was a civil war of Europe being fought in this country. If that can be proven, then everything that happened from the Civil War would be null and void in this country. That's the whole point of this. If it was a civil war of two foreign countries fighting it in a different land, then anything that came out of it would have nothing to do with this country. That's the whole deal.
That's beyond thinking.
Do what?
That's beyond thinking when you think about that one, because if they really did do that, then there really is no. There was no outcome.
There would be no reconstruction. Anything happened with the new constitutions of the states would be null and void. Everything would be null and void because it wasn't actually America at war. It wasn't really the states at war. It was a bunch of foreign powers that came in that were fighting a civil war over here that would have affected their countries directly. They just used a different country to fight it in.
Wow, I wonder if that was lost to history.
I don't know.
Keith, may I add to that?
Sure.
When we looked this stuff up and talked about it, we talked about it a long time. Basically, we're leaning the same way what you're saying right now. Is it was designed to come out that way we believe for the pleasure of the Pope at the time.
Huh. So it was them doing it all over again. So 1929 or the 1928 whole neutrality thing, that's been broken over and over.
Well, yeah, I mean, you still got the British bringing their stuff over through Colonel House and orchestrated by the British elites. So all these things are just a continuation of what happened in the 1870s.
Which he was told never to do that. And he did it anyway.
Well, you have to understand that in 1823, when James Monroe brought in his doctrine, apparently there was 20 years or so that the Pope didn't do much over here until the middle of the 1840s. And that was also done with the Vatican, with the Pope at the time, with the Democratic International Party.
Right. That connects the 1849 Treaty of Oregon, 1846 Treaty of Oregon, where
That's correct.
they moved the boundaries. And
That's
when they,
correct.
yeah.
And so when you look at it on a broad scale and you understand these timelines, you're literally walking down the path of pretty much what happened back then, and it's not what we were led to believe when you were in school.
Oh, they would have shot the teacher if they started coming out with this on what was really going. You know what I mean? They would have shot him.
So the bottom line to all this is nothing has changed since the 1850s or since 1789 when the Dutch Constitution came out.
Interesting. There was a thing about this. We might cover the flag next week because one of our delegates wants to show what the actual stars and stripes are, and we might show that next week. I'll have to look through this. I haven't looked through this. It's a striped flag of the East India Company and its connection with the American Stars and Stripes. And when we go through this thing, it's going to be interesting, I think, that people not realizing that the flag that they fly is actually a company flag. No country, folks. There's no country involved in it. It's just a company. Private company that somebody put on newspaper or put in paper. It's like a Sears flag, JCPenney flag, Walmart flag. No different. So essentially what you have is you have a company registering with other companies or with another company. So they tell you have to register your company in order to be legal. You're actually registering your company with a company. That's basically it. And then they started bringing in company flags in the States. That's why they changed them. A lot of the original flags are not the same as the flag that they fly today. Interesting stuff. We'll go over this flag. It's a touchy situation because people are just so used to saluting that flag, but it's that's stuff we cover in the t-roh show. We say things that nobody else is willing to say, and that's the way it works. So at any rate, that's it. That's all we have for the t-roh show this week. If anybody has